Halstead, Mia Hamm, Joy Harjo, Howland, Katherine Johnson, Indra Nooyi, and Michelle Obama. This spring, the National Women's Hall of Fame piloted a unique partnership with STARS CGI, a conglomerate of 10 leading New York City nonprofit organizations with a mission of empowering girls. The girls participated in a 10-week intensive program, all in preparation for a youth-led summit. The goal was to help students build leadership, confidence, and public speaking skills to last a lifetime. We are joined by 10 of the students who participated in this program today. I'd like to invite Christina and Natalie to the stage to help us formally begin the induction ceremony. I'm also delighted that we are joined by members of the Greater Rochester Women's Philharmonic Orchestra, who are playing on the stage just behind the screen. Conductor Nancy Straulau wrote a special fanfare for today. The orchestra will debut that piece as Christina and Natalie read a poem written by 1998 inductee Maya Angelou. Processing first will be members of the Board of Directors of the National Women's Hall of Fame. They will be followed by Girl Scout Troop 1246 and 1306, and then our inductees. Thank you again for joining us.
Lift up your faces. You have a piercing need for this bright morning dawning for you. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage.
Now please stand to welcome our distinguished inductees.
Guard, honor your flag. Please join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you for that beautiful entrance, and welcome to the inductees who have joined us this afternoon. You may be seated. The COVID-19 pandemic devastated our world, our state, and our communities, taking the lives of millions of people and causing social, economic, and political complexities that were previously unimaginable. A year ago, the National Women's Hall of Fame made the very difficult decision to postpone its 2021 ceremony due to the rise in cases. The 9 women we honor today, their loved ones, and all of us have been waiting a year for this ceremony to happen, and here we are. It is happening. Congratulations. COVID, of course, continues to impact our way of life, and we send our best wishes to the guests who had to cancel this week because of illness. We welcome them and so many others who are joining us virtually this afternoon. For the first time, the National Women's Hall of Fame is live streaming this ceremony to our YouTube channel. Watch parties in homes and classrooms were organized across the country. We welcome all of you, from Boston to Boulder and California to Jamaica. In Seneca Falls, several hundred students and families are at watch parties at Minders Academy and at the National Women's Hall of Fame. I want to take a moment to thank our passionate staff and board of directors, and especially National Women's Hall of Fame Board President Betsy Fantone. We are an organization that is rapidly growing and expanding, and it would not happen without these individuals and their exceptional leadership and support. So many people made this weekend possible, and I wish I could mention each one of their names. There are 2 people I do want to personally thank for their role in this endeavor: the Hall's Learning and Engagement Manager, Natalie Rudd, and the Board Induction Chair and past President Kate Bennett. Throughout this room are the individuals, corporations, and foundations who give generously to lift up women's history and women's stories. We are also joined by many of our government partners, including the town of Seneca Falls, the county, and our state and federal governments. Because of all of you, the National Women's Hall of Fame is expanding the reach of our programs, both regionally and nationally. Because of you, ground will be broken later this year for the next phase of construction at our home at the Seneca Knitting Mill. And because of you, we gather here today and celebrate the induction of 9 incredible women. To help get our celebration started, it is my pleasure to introduce someone who has been a true friend to the National Women's Hall of Fame for many, many years. She's also the first woman governor of the state of New York, Governor Kathy Hochul.
Thank you. Thank you. What an honor to be here My responsibility as the first woman governor of New York is to welcome you to this great celebration, overdue. But as I said on the first day I took office, I didn't come here to make history. I came here to make a difference. And that's exactly what the women on this stage have done. Each of you have made a profound difference in the lives of others. I want to thank Betsy Fantone for being the president of this organization. And as you heard from Jennifer, we have great leadership, and I want to commend you for what you're doing today, but also a look back to the women who over 30 years ago had a vision that maybe people thought was a little bit bold, a little bit audacious, but isn't that what New York women do? The women here who had the vision, who brought us here all these years later. Great to be back in this beautiful space. I have seen a resurgence, a new energy in upstate communities from Seneca Falls to Geneva and so many others. And those of you who've been studying the history of this, a lot of it began when we had an amazing senator who actually put the spotlight on upstate New York and our communities, and that would happen to be our secretary, our friend Hillary Clinton, who's here with us today. She may have traveled all over the world, but she never forgot the heart of our state, and I welcome her back today with a heart full of love from so many people. Delighted to see you. I will talk briefly about why we're here, but also where we came from. And it was 1848, when a group of individuals, not a small group, think about this, how 300 individuals came from near and far to gather in a tiny place without social media telling them where to go. I mean, how did that happen? How did that happen? But they came to this crossroads of Native American rights and the abolitionists and the Quakers and just a bunch of really brave women who stood up and said, no more. They wrote this declaration of sentiments after spending a number of days writing. If you read the words that are inscribed on the walls near the Hall of Fame across the river, you can feel the anger dripping from every word as they wrote them. They were so sick and tired of being viewed simply as property, having no rights. Why'd they even exist? And they stood up. Boy, were they courageous. They went against the tides of their time, their communities, society, churches, and in some cases their own families. But they launched a revolution that was long overdue. And the revolution got people focused on elevating the lives of women in our country. And I am so proud of as the governor of this state that it started right here, just down the road in Seneca Falls. And that's why this location has to be finished. We will complete this, and it will continue to be a beacon of hope for so many others. And what is shocking to me as we think about that history, and it took even longer for us to get the right to vote. I'm happy to say that New York was 3 years ahead of the rest of the nation, but we always like to be first. 1917, 1920 for the rest of it. So there was only one woman from the original gathering that lived long enough to see the right to vote. So it's a reminder that sometimes changing the world takes some time. But we've always been on a path where we made progress. We enhanced rights, we added rights, we elevated rights. But for the last 174 years, we assumed that would always be the case. Until 3 months ago, today. And for the first time in our history, perhaps, and certainly in my lifetime, we've seen the removal, the stripping of basic rights. And so I call upon the women of this country and this state to stand up as they did all those years ago right in this place. Stand up and say we have the rights that we've had for over 50 years in this country with Roe v. Wade. And we also deserve to have the right to be paid equally and to be able to work without being harassed in a sexual way in a workplace. We have the right to have child care. We have the right to have paid family leave. We have basic human rights, as Hillary Clinton said years ago, because women's rights are human rights. She said it first. And that is what we're called to do. My friends, the torch that was first lit in Seneca Falls in 1848 has been passed to us. And it is our responsibility as this generation right here and right now to not just pass it on to our daughters and granddaughters, but it's also to make it glow even brighter. What are our accomplishments going to be when we look back through history? We know what they are. We know what Susan B. Anthony did. We know what Lucretia Mott did. We know what Harriet Tubman did. We know what Sojourner Truth did. We have all the stories, and now these new women added to the list of over 300 who grace their names grace the Hall of Fame here. We're so proud of that. But in 2022, when they look back at us 100 years from now, will they say we advanced the rights of women as our foremothers had done before us? That is the question I pose today, and that is the one we will leave here with. But hopefully more invigorated as we approach upcoming elections, empowered to make sure that our rights are always protected and enhanced. And that's something all of us across this nation must do. Don't take for granted the right to vote that women did not have not that long ago. Cherish it, honor it, protect it. And while you're here in the state of New York, have a spectacular time, because there's no place more beautiful, more giving, more steeped in history, and not just women's rights, but the labor movement started here. The LGBTQ movement started here. The NAACP started here, as well as the environmental justice movement started here. So I take that legacy very seriously as your governor and the governor of this great state. But I want the next generation to know that we will support them and bring them into the cause. And I don't want the young generation to give up hope. You cannot give up hope, promise me that. Because hope is what we have to lead us on to the next challenges. We've been through a lot this country. We've been through so much before, but we'll always rise up, because that's what the women of this country and the women of New York always will do. Thank you, everybody, and congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you, Governor Hochul, and I want to acknowledge again just how much the governor has done for the hall over the years. Thank you. Finally, I want to say just a note about the inductees that have joined us on the stage. There is something that unites each one of them. In fact, it unites all 302 inductees of the National Women's Hall of Fame. It's grit, it's determination, it's strength. It's the ability to overcome barriers and learn from setbacks. It's the ability to believe and the hope in the future that they are willing to create. Your stories are part of the National Women's Hall of Fame forevermore. Thank you. It is now my great pleasure and honor to introduce the honorary chair of this 30th induction ceremony, 2005 inductee, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is absolutely a thrill to be back here in this fabled auditorium in Geneva, in upstate New York, with all of you. Jen, thank you for the work you've done. Thanks to Betsy Fantone and the board for your steadfast support of the National Women's Hall of Fame. And thanks to our terrific governor, Kathy Hochul, who has, in a short period of time, really done so much to demonstrate leadership and grit as she was speaking about the inductees. You know, it is a thrill for me to be amongst all of them, and I congratulate each and every one of today's exceptional inductees. And their stories strike a deep chord with me because I know none of us is here on our own. We are bound together by history, by shared struggle, by hope, by overcoming disappointments and setbacks, by resilience and persistence. And yes, indeed, by the women who gathered here in this space 125 years ago, but also the women who gathered in Seneca Falls. Think about that. As we just heard, 300 hardy souls, mostly women, but a few intrepid men, including Frederick Douglass. And yes, in a time where what they were doing had absolutely no precedent anywhere in the world. I always used to say, as I traveled around the state as senator, there was just something in the water up here in the Finger Lakes region that inspired these women and the men who supported them to meet together on that July afternoon and continue over a couple of days to hammer out the unbelievable idea that women had rights and that those rights were the same as their fathers and husbands and brothers and sons. You know, the Declaration of Sentiments, hammered out just 10 miles from here, really stands the test of time. It was inspirational and also practical. Many of the women who gathered to embark on the conversations and the debates did not see it come to fruition. But they understood they had to start the journey together. I was privileged on July 16th, 1998, 150 years after the first Women's Rights Convention, to come to Seneca Falls as First Lady to commemorate the occasion. And we gave speeches in the afternoon sun out on the high school playing field, and the stands were filled because there was a sense of history and pride that what had started so long ago meant that progress was possible and we could celebrate it while continuing to fight for more. And then in August of 2003, I participated in an event for the National Women's Hall of Fame, and I was absolutely certain that helping the Hall of Fame to not just induct amazing women, but also to represent the history of the women's rights movement in our country was not only the right thing to do, but a smart thing as well, because it would draw more people here to this region of the state where they too would learn the stories about these extraordinary women. I was honored in October of 2005 to return to be inducted myself. And then thank you. And then the following year, in 2006, I helped to host a reception at Zuzu's coffee shop to receive a briefing about the plans for the future site of the Hall of Fame, namely the Seneca Knitting Mill. Now, for me, seeing the progress that was being made and actually envisioning sometime in the future to have the National Women's Hall of Fame right here in this part of our state was so exciting. And I knew how much attention was paid to Cooperstown, New York, where the Baseball Hall of Fame is. And I remember saying, there are more women than baseball players. And I love baseball. Grew up playing softball and even hardball. But I have to say, I cannot wait to attend the grand opening of the Women's Hall of Fame in the knitting mill. The other thing I had the honor of helping to do was teaming up with the late, great Congresswoman Louise Slaughter. She and I introduced bipartisan legislation. Yes, we used to do that a lot, bipartisan legislation, to establish the Votes for Women's History Trail. And finally, that legislation passed and was signed into law, and the National Park Service was authorized to help establish the trail. But we still need to work on getting the funding that is necessary to attract people to know more about what happened at that incredible moment in time back in the 19th century. As we celebrate the history that is happening on this stage and remember all of the efforts that led to it, I think we are, as the governor so compellingly said, called to recommit ourselves to the continued fight for women's rights and full equality. All over the world, and yes, right here in the United States, there is a growing pushback against women's advancement and progress. And sadly, it is often amplified by social media, which has a tendency to attract attention by being controversial and dramatic, and that includes going after women who are in the public sphere, attacking them, undermining them, and frankly, launching all kinds of misogynistic and sexist assaults on them. So as the tide has shifted toward more authoritarianism in a number of places, more nationalism, more populism, very often the first targets are leaders who are promoting women's full equality. I was just with the First Lady of Ukraine, who along with her husband are so bravely helping to tell the story of what is happening in their country because of unchecked, horrific aggression. I was also just with a group of Afghan women who themselves have escaped the Taliban's control, but who understand painfully what it is like for the girls and women who remain, particularly the girls and young women who are desperate to go to college, desperate to go to high school, desperate to get an education, and who are being denied for no reason other than the fact that they are women and girls. The pandemic pushed a lot of women out of the workforce and unraveled decades of hard-fought progress all over the world. And then, as the governor has said, the Supreme Court revoked a right it had granted women when it overturned Roe v. Wade. I'm deeply worried about the impact of that decision on women's lives. And I'm also concerned that we are retreating as a nation from trying to figure out how to have this big, inclusive, pluralistic democracy that was at the core of what Seneca Falls was about. It saddens and yes, it angers me that my granddaughter, Charlotte, may grow up in a world where she has fewer rights than my daughter, Chelsea. But that also motivates me to keep going, keep fighting, keep speaking out and standing up. And I know I'm in good company, not only with the inductees, but with all of you. I'm often asked, well, how do I feel about what's happening in our country? And, you know, I used to give kind of a long, frankly, kind of wonkish answer, where I went down the pluses and the minuses and said what was happening and what we could do about it. And, you know, I could see eyes glazing over after a while. And now I'm much more likely to quote a dear friend of mine who we lost too soon, Secretary Madeleine Albright. As her life reminded us, and as she told us, often with great humor, having escaped from the Nazis with her family, then having escaped from the communists with her family, and then having to really work hard to get a degree in international relations, get a PhD, go to work on behalf of the causes and concerns that she deeply cared about. So she would answer like this when she was asked, well, there's so many terrible things happening. I just mentioned two of them, Ukraine and Afghanistan. Are you an optimist or a pessimist? And she would look with those twinkly eyes of her, often wearing a big pin on her shoulder, and she would say, I'm an optimist who worries a lot. So let's be optimistic, but let's put ourselves to work to overcome the worries that we face. Thank you all, and congratulations again.
Once again, our thanks to Secretary Clinton for her unwavering support of the National Women's Hall of Fame. I also want to thank you. We would not be here without you and every member of the public who nominate extraordinary women to be included in the hall. Nominations come to us from every corner of the nation and represent every discipline you can think of. Many of our nominators are here today, as well as members of our national panel of judges. Thank you for your service. It's become tradition for previous National Women's Hall of Fame inductees to play a role in this ceremony. The women who join me on stage today will officially introduce the new class of inductees and provide them with their induction medal. We begin with the celebration of Octavia E. Butler. Journalist, activist, activist, feminist icon, and 1993 inductee Gloria Steinem has sent in a video recording to introduce Octavia's life and work.
Octavia Butler was a writer with such a big imagination that her writing changed our vision of the possible. As a child, she found classwork difficult, and so she spent a lot of time in the library, where diverse books set her imagination free. This meant that as a writer, she was often categorized as science fiction, but actually, she had a very real vision of a world in which marginalized people could be at the center. Just as one sample, Kindred, is the story of one Black woman who is transported back to the early 19th century, where she meets her ancestors, both white and Black. If that is compelling, you will understand why she won readers' hearts and so many awards. Indeed, she became the first science fiction writer ever to receive a MacArthur Genius Award. More important, she won the hearts of readers, more every year since her death. Read her, it will change your mind and heart. To read Octavia Butler is to fall in love. So I am so pleased to posthumously celebrate Octavia Butler and present this medal to one of the special caretakers of her legacy, Jules Jackson.
I'm Karen Lawrence, president of the Huntington Library, Art Museum, and Botanical Gardens. We're one of the world's great independent research libraries. We're located outside of Los Angeles in the Pasadena area. As the very proud home of the Octavia E. Butler Archive, an extensive archive, we're absolutely delighted to help celebrate Octavia E. Butler's induction into the National Women's Hall of Fame. We're here in one of the library's 3 public exhibition halls, which showcase our most outstanding materials in the 11 million item library collection, which spans from the 11th century to the 21st century. Here you can find a Gutenberg Bible, a first folio of Shakespeare, original printing of the Declaration of Independence, and documents around women's suffrage. And here we have always open a page of Octavia Butler's manuscript drafts to one of her novels. Octavia's collection at the Huntington offers one of the most outstanding, unusual portraits of a literary life. And there's an extraordinary record of the interior life of a young woman who knew she'd be a great writer, knew she'd be a best-selling author. Octavia E. Butler understood her own uniqueness, and one of my favorite entries in the journal is, "I write science fiction and fantasy for a living. As far as I know, I'm the only Black woman who does this." Octavia was a homegrown girl. Her collection is the most requested collection in the country. We are very proud to celebrate this momentous occasion of the induction of Octavia E. Butler into the National Women's Hall of Fame. It's about time.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Kidd.
And I'm Sonia O'Dumpton.
You may know us from a show from HBO called Lovecraft Country. But now we're super excited, actually enthralled, to be adapting for television Octavia Butler's
Fledgling.
her quotation, "All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change." From Parable of the Sower. Octavia spoke to me because she was the outcast who the world said, "You don't belong." And so she carved out a space for herself. She created worlds for herself. She created universes where she fit in, where she was the norm, where she was the center.
Growing up in Los Angeles, California, upon my maturation and understanding and politicization of who I am and my identity sort of serve as a prism through which I look at the world and the way the world looks at me. The way in which she normalizes the historically marginal is categorically life-altering, because to read a text and to not just be on the peripheral, that it's not just about the struggle and then we shall overcome. What if we've already arrived? And in shifting that world around us, the world then has to change in order to meet our standards. And with that said, we want to thank the National Women's Hall of Fame for finally recognizing our ancestor, Octavia Estelle Butler, for her genius,
Her creativity,
for her magnificence,
her political prophecy,
for her unapologetic way of being a Black woman.
and most importantly, for us.
My deepest congratulations to Octavia Butler for her posthumous honor by the Women's Hall of Fame. To the Women's Hall of Fame, thank you for recognizing Octavia Butler's enormous contribution to the literary world and beyond. She's inspired so many of us and expanded our minds, and it's time that we recognize her great, great gifts. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm LeVar Burton, and I am sorry that I'm not there with you all in upstate New York for tonight's festivities, but I am pleased and proud to have been asked to say a few words on behalf of tonight's inductee, Octavia E. Butler. Now, on the surface of it, I might be an unlikely choice to stand in and give remarks on the behalf of Octavia E. Butler, over 6-foot Black woman who wrote like fire and scorched the word with her talent. But on the other hand, like all men, I had a mother, and women have been massively influential in my life. There are a lot of people who achieve their fame long after they have gone, and Octavia E. Butler certainly fits into that category. What I love, I think, about her body of work that she has left us is that it is informative to all of us who are on this human journey. The themes that she writes about, the worlds that she envisioned and left for us to study, indicate a soul with an intellect that encompasses all of the potential of humanity, which means our foibles as well as our strengths. Octavia saw us as we truly are, complex organisms with greatness about us and the opposite thereof. She challenges us to rise to our highest level of being and be absolutely relentless in our examination of who we are and why we are to one another the way we are. And so, it is my extreme and joyous pleasure to accept on behalf of my friend Jules, the managing director of the Octavia E. Butler Estate and Octavia E. Butler Enterprises, I humbly accept on her behalf this induction into the National Women's Hall of Fame. Octavia E. Butler, master wordsmith, master dreamer of dreams. This woman has dreamed her way into history and left a roadmap for how humanity should behave. This is much deserved, perhaps long overdue, but as Alex Haley used to say, God may not always come when you call him, but she's forever on time.
Welcome to Jules, who is accepting these honors in Octavia's memory. Welcome Octavia E. Butler to the National Women's Hall of Fame. I am honored to welcome 1993 inductee and activist Dolores Huerta to the podium. Dolores is a former teacher who co-founded the United Farm Workers of America. She has dedicated her life to fighting for the rights of farm workers, migrant workers, and their children. She is a 1998 recipient of the Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2012. Dolores will introduce and celebrate Judy Chicago, who is joining us virtually. Please welcome Dolores Huerta.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here again at the Women's Hall of Fame, and so honored to be able to do the presentation for Judy Chicago. Judy Chicago was born in Chicago, Illinois, under the name of Judith Sylvia Cohen, okay? She is an incredible artist. She has done so many, many works that really honor women. One of her first works that she did, not really one of the first, one of her most famous works is The Dinner Party. And this, yes, let's clap for that. And this is a dinner table, of course, with all of the dinner plates that really honor women's history in Western civilization, which includes not only many famous women, but also women in mythology. And it is a very, very powerful piece, and it has been traveled all over the world and has been seen by over 1 million people who have seen The Dinner Party. I had the good fortune of being with Judy Chicago and Gloria Steinem to celebrate The Dinner Party in the Hull House in Chicago, Illinois, and also where The Dinner Party is. It's a permanent establishment in Brooklyn, New York. So everybody has to go see The Dinner Party. Please, it's a must. Everybody needs to see that. And after The Dinner Party, Judy Chicago, she did a couple of other great pieces, and one of them was to celebrate women's birth, the Birth Project. She had 150 women who do needlework to do that project. And then, of course, she did another one, which is the Power Play. So all of her artistic works have been dedicated to celebrate women and the power that the women need to have. She was named in Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential women, and also by Artsy magazine as one of the most influential artists. So Judy Chicago was not just an artist, she's also an educator. And she continues to work today, and her artworks are all over the world. And we can think of Judy Chicago as somebody that has influenced art, influenced women all over the world. And I am just so honored to be able to honor Judy Chicago. And I would like to ask all of you to do something, okay, for Judy. I'm going to say, Viva Judy Chicago, and I want all of you to say Viva. And then we're gonna do a couple of other ones, okay? Okay, let's go. Viva Judy Chicago! Viva, Viva all of our inductees today! Viva the National Women's Hall of Fame! Viva. Muchas gracias, thank you very much.
I am truly honored to be included in the stellar group of women being inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. and congratulations to my sister inductees. However, being honored these days sometimes brings with it close scrutiny of one's life, beliefs, and actions. The result being that if one is found wanting, one can be canceled, something I want to discuss today because it raises the uncomfortable question, does a woman have to be perfect in order to be honored? Moreover, is cancel culture the same for women as for men? Canceling spread as a term and phenomena in public consciousness with the Me Too movement. And I would be the first person to acknowledge that men like Harvey Weinstein or R. Kelly deserve to be canceled because of their demonstrated history of sexual violence and abusive behavior. The dictionary defines cancellation as omitting or deleting, removing or neutralizing each other's strength or effect. But I think it's important to point out that this is something that has already been done to women repeatedly through neglect, misunderstanding, hostility. Think Hillary Clinton's campaign for president. And most importantly, through our absence from the highest level of political power, from museum walls and art history books, from public monuments, and a myriad of other places. Thus, it seems that the cancellation of women might need to be seen in the context of our own history, one in which, as I mentioned, too many women's achievements have already been canceled by society. Moreover, we desperately need models for how to achieve change at a time when so many fiercely fought for freedoms are under attack by a ferocious right wing seemingly dedicated to reasserting patriarchal values. One might also describe them as our very own version of the Taliban, but with help from some women. As the great Bell Hooks pointed out, one doesn't have to be a woman to be a feminist. Conversely, one doesn't have to be a man to support patriarchy. When I was researching for the dinner party, my symbolic history of women in Western civilization, I was inspired by the courage of our foremothers, including Margaret Sanger, who in recent years has come under fire for some of her ideas. Still, it is difficult for young women to imagine the tremendous resistance encountered by early birth control advocates like Sanger. Though repeatedly arrested for attempting to disseminate contraceptive information and equipment, she continued her efforts throughout her lifetime because she believed that, quote, without the right to control one's own body, all other rights are meaningless, unquote. A lesson that, sadly, tragically, is going to have to be fought for all over again because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Other women I learned about and from were the 19th century feminists like the towering figures of Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, whose theories sparked decades of agitation for women's rights. Should new discoveries of their imperfections cancel our tremendous debt to them for their contributions? If so, to whom are we to turn for inspiration and for knowledge, if not to our foremothers or other women who were, like most of us, flawed human beings? And young women need to learn from our history if they are to stand up to the reversals of the slow and difficult gains we have made over the century. As an artist whose career spans 6 decades, I have faced repeated efforts by the male-dominated art world to cancel me and my work, which is one reason this honor today means so much to me. When I was young, the prevailing idea was that women had no history, and thus I felt extremely isolated. In response, I undertook a self-guided study tour that introduced me to our rich heritage, which, of course, included many of the women in the National Women's Hall of Fame. They became my mentors, and their courage fueled my own. I discovered that our heritage is our power, but with that power comes an obligation to fight for change and, happily, a wealth of information about how to do so. One last point. Women are always expected to be perfect. When I taught, I often had to help female students overcome their tendency not to trust their ideas because, in their eyes, they were not perfect. It always saddens me that they could not say with confidence, as Lou Reed did, first thought, best thought. Thus, my question, one with which I will conclude my remarks: do women have to be perfect in order to be honored by history? Thank you.
Judy Chicago wrote her autobiography, The Flowery, and she has received numerous awards. So I would just say to everyone, go to her website so you can see the incredible, wholesome, wonderful story of Judy Chicago. Thank you.
Welcome Judy Chicago into the National Women's Hall of Fame. I am pleased to welcome 2017 inductee Lieutenant General Carol Mutter to the podium. General Mutter was the first woman in the United States Marine Corps to attain a 3-star rank. She served for more than 30 years and earned numerous medals and decorations. Post-retirement in 1999, General Mutter led the Defense Advisory Committee on Women in the Services and served as the president of the Women's Marines Association. General Mutter joins us to honor and celebrate Brigadier General Rebecca Halstead.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the Hall. Really a great pleasure for me to be here today to introduce Brigadier General Rebecca Halstead as a new member in the Hall of Fame. Becky, grew up right here in the Finger Lakes region, and she was never going to go into the Army, but she drank the water. She ended up in the second class at West Point that accepted women, and she was the first West Point female graduate to attain the rank of general officer. Okay. Now, she was commissioned 10 years after I was. We didn't have the opportunity for an academy education in my day. We did have a lot of challenges that continued with Becky and her career as well, and continue today. But we also have opportunities. And Becky had more of those than I did because we continue to make progress. and there's still more to be made. Opportunities are what you make of them, and Becky has made a lot of hers. She has written a book and has become a great motivational speaker. So I don't want to speak anymore. I want to let her speak.
Well, thank you very much, General Mutter. I knew your comments would be gracious, but I must say thank you for your incredible service to our nation and impressive service. And as I did out there, and I'll do again, I salute you. As many of you might know, we are one team. All the services. We define our success that way on the battlefield and in garrison, except on the fields of friendly strife, like football. So I think it would only be right for me to say, go Army, beat Navy, ma'am. We all appreciate the energy in the room. We're really happy that you can live stream now. Isn't technology wonderful? So I definitely want to give a shout out to my hometown, because I am just a country girl from a town with no traffic lights, but we do have internet. So they are live streaming, and so I want to give a shout out to Candor, New York. And also, to my first babysitter, Mrs. Jean Cornett, who will be 100 years old this year. Her husband served in the military and was a POW in the Battle of the Bulge. And so I have had great role models, certainly as friends. But I must give a shout out to her. So yes, I'm a country girl with a town with no traffic lights, but we do also have a zip code. It's an honor to be on this stage this afternoon. But it is also incredibly humbling, because we on the stage know there are so many other women that could be recognized with great stories. We also know that someone decided to recognize us, that in some way, meaningful, impactful way, we touched their life and they decided to write a letter of recommendation for us. When you get the call that this is going to be an honor that you're given, I don't know about the rest, but my first response is, you have the wrong Becky Halstead. But at any rate, it is an honor and it is humbling. But what that tells you is that someone nominated you. So it makes you stop and look around and look at all the other people and all the other stories. And what it should really do is inspire us and ignite in us an action to do the same for others. And I believe that's what's so fulfilling about the National Women's Hall of Fame and their vision, is to capture these stories and contributions. And as I like to say, I'm really an ordinary girl, but I've had extraordinary opportunities. And for that, I feel extremely blessed. This morning on social media, I received a text from Mordecai Levin, who I know nominated me. He probably is going to be upset now that I said that. Wonderful man of courage. He sent me a quote from Susan B. Anthony. So I saw him quickly in the foyer and I said, I'm stealing it because I didn't have it until this morning. And I said, but I think it's so important to be part of my few minutes. Susan B. Anthony said this on the hallowed grounds of Seneca Falls. We shall someday be heated, and when we shall have our amendment to the Constitution, everybody will think it was always so. just exactly as many young people believe that all the privileges, freedom, and enjoyments that women now possess always were hers. They have no idea of how every single inch of ground that she stands upon today has been gained by the hard work of some little handful of women of the past. I think that is very profound in what we're experiencing today, at least for me. Now, I don't know if my card's in the right order anymore. I recognize that the foundation of my journey, however, that I want to briefly share with you is really quite simple. Faith, family, friends, and freedom. So first and foremost, I give all glory to God to be able to be standing here to have these few moments with you. I especially thank my family. I may be one of the few people that have my parents in the audience, and I am so grateful and blessed for that. They have been and are always shining examples. Their wisdom, their unconditional love, and their willingness to join me on a lot of adventures. Thank you to my incredible friends and my battle buddies. And they say that friends are people who know you and still like you. So from grade school to West Point, to the Army, to the corporate sector of the world, my life is absolutely better because of each of you. To freedom, what an honor it was and a privilege to serve our nation as a soldier in the United States Army. From some of the challenging formative years at West Point to the battlefields of Afghanistan and Iraq. What I will say about that journey, it was always about living my oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. It was not always an easy path, but as I learned as a young girl, there are two rules to life. Rule number one, don't quit. Rule number two, refer back to rule number one. It was an honor and a privilege to serve, and I always tell everyone that my desire to serve my nation was never greater than a man's, but it was not less than a man's either. And the greatest joy of leading in our military was helping others find their true potential, to lead themselves and to lead their teams. And as all you probably know, soldiers are willing to die for each other, but I say more importantly, to live for each other. Our nation's flag, which I love that we honored first and foremost today, is the centerpiece of our formations. Thank you to the Honor Guard for doing that. And our heroes are those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. So you see, freedom is not free. May we remember each and every one of them and honor their sacrifice on our behalf by respecting and caring for each other. Thank you again for this tremendous honor.
Welcome Rebecca Halstead to the National Women's Hall of Fame. I want to welcome 2003 inductee Donna De Verona to the podium. Donna was the youngest participant at the 1960 Olympic Games, a competitive swimmer at just 13 years old. Over the next 5 years, Donna broke 18 world records, attained 37 national championships, and won 2 Olympic gold medals. After retiring, she became the first woman sports broadcaster on network television. Donna's leadership and consistent advocacy for expanding women's opportunity in sports has had a wide and lasting impact. Donna joins us to celebrate Mia Hamm, whose medal will be accepted by her former coach, Dr. Colleen Hacker.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here as an honoree, and I want to congratulate our new class and all the classes before us. I also want to thank the Hall, who's had the wisdom to elevate the honoring of women in sport, because if anything, in many ways, we're the visible manifestation of what is possible when you give women room and protected opportunities to be the best they can be. So many of our athletes go on to be great leaders, entrepreneurs, and athletes, coaches, broadcasters. We've seen such growth because of laws and because of people. I have to give a shout out to Hillary Clinton, who always, when she was a senator or first lady, was there for us when Title IX was challenged. It is my pleasure to introduce the next honoree. She wishes she could be here. She's a mother with 3 children, and, well, she's there doing her spousal duties of getting them off to school. Mia Hamm, a dynamic future soccer star, leader and philanthropist, made her way onto our world and into our world on March 17, 1972. It was just a few months before the passage of the landmark transitional Title IX legislation, which forbid discrimination on the basis of sex in educational institutions receiving federal funds. I repeat this law because it's being challenged today. It's been challenged ever since it was passed in 1972. Mia's timing was perfect, and it still is. She would be one of the very first of her generation to benefit from Title IX, which unleashed the potential of generations of girls and women to take their place in our country as leaders in the highest levels of public office, in corporations, in courtrooms, and on the playing fields of sport. Only 50 years ago, listen to this, 11% of America's women held undergraduate degrees. Forget participating in elite high school or collegiate sports programs. They simply did not exist. While the sponsors of Title IX realized that women should compete head-to-head with their male counterparts in the classroom, elevating and empowering females in sport, and this is really important, had to take place in separate, safe, fair, and evolving spaces. Spaces where student athletes like Mia, a gifted, hardworking athlete, could earn a college degree on scholarship while nurturing her football skills, and boy did she do that. In a career that spanned 17 years as a United States international team member, she helped her lead her University of North Carolina Tar Heels to 2 consecutive Division I championships. As a young sensation, she made her debut on the national team at the young age of 15. In 1991, at age 19, and still the youngest on the national squad, this amazing forward helped Team USA beat host China to capture the very first FIFA World Cup title. Five years later, when women's soccer was included in the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games for the very first time, Team USA was once again led by star Mia. They attracted a sold-out crowd on their way to capturing, yes, a gold medal. A gold medal win that convinced the governing body of the sport to let the United States host the 1999 FIFA Women's World Cup. Team USA and the organizing committee was ready, but the press was skeptical, as were many. How could women's soccer players attract large crowds? Staging the games in America's most iconic stadiums was just too much of a risk. Don't tell that to our players. They believed in themselves and worked overtime to market and promote the tournament. As the most well-known player on the team, yes, it was Mia who shouldered the pressure, who dealt with the press, who volunteered to appear in ads, to talk to prospective sponsors, and to sign autographs after every single match. In every way, Mia exemplified the adage that there is no I in the word team. As chairman of the 1999 World Cup, I had the privilege of working with this squad and helping stage the most successful women's sporting event in history. In the way of tickets sold, fan support, and TV ratings, 17 million people tuned into that tournament that nobody had believed in. I watched as Mia shared the spotlight, or more like it, constantly give it up for her amazing teammates. She always brought them into the spotlight with her. Teammates like Michelle Akers, Julie Foudy, Joy Fawcett, Brandy Chastain, and Christine Lilly, and Brianna Scurry. Mia's fans took notice. They knew that this was a team that America could fall in love with. No wonder she was voted the most popular athlete of the year, not to mention the most accomplished. These players not only won battles on the pitch, they fought battles together for equal pay, a place at the bargaining table, respect, and finally, as of now, a viable professional soccer league of their own. Even after their '99 triumph, Team USA continued to pay it forward, winning one more World Cup title and one more Olympic gold medal. And in doing so, they helped usher in a new era for the sport and opened up the game for thousands and, yes, millions of young females globally. A sport that until Mia and her teammates came along was a game mostly for only men. No wonder Mia was the very first woman to be inducted into the World Football Hall of Fame. This beautiful game now belongs to just everyone. It is now my pleasure to honor Mia and invite her into the National Women's Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Mia Hamm.
Welcome Mia Hamm into the National
for this honor, and I wish I could be there in person. I want to say thank you to the Women's Hall of Fame and congratulate all the other inspirational women who are being celebrated here tonight. I look up to each and every one of you for your amazing contributions. I am certainly proud of my career as an athlete and all the championships that my teammates and I were able to win along the way. I am also proud of our impact on the sport of soccer in this country and beyond. But I always felt like we had a unique opportunity to lead by example and inspire others, especially girls, to dream as big as possible. So when I see a women's professional soccer game in the US with over 30,000 fans last weekend in San Diego, or a sold-out Wembley Stadium this summer in London for the Women's European Championships, it excites me that even more is possible. It was not long ago that my teammates and I were driving our own vans to the US Women's National Team games, and now we have achieved equal pay from US Soccer. What an amazing achievement, not just for soccer in this country, but the ripple effect that will be felt by all women across the country and throughout the world. Accepting this honor means so much to me, but it is important to recognize and thank all those whose shoulders I stood on and those that carried me along the way. To my family and friends, my coaches and staff, my teachers, and my teammates, I love you all and thank you for always believing in me. I also want to express my sincere gratitude to the current members of the US Women's National Team as they continue to break down barriers and open new doors for my daughters and millions of girls across the world. I am so proud of you. And to my daughters and all the young girls and young women out there, I leave you with this. When you find yourself speaking in front of a group or supporting a cause or defending a friend, you might be nervous. I want you to understand that the wavering you have in your voice isn't fear or doubt, but the realization in your own power, your own strength, and in your own worth. Embrace it. Thank you again, and have a wonderful evening.
Welcome Mia Hamm to the National Women's Hall of Fame. I am pleased to welcome back to the podium Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton. Secretary Clinton will do the honors of introducing our next inductee, Joy Harjo.
Well, I think you can see already why so many of us are excited by what the Hall of Fame is doing because of the stories that it is capturing about these extraordinary women. And I get the great honor of introducing one of them. Joy Harjo is a critically acclaimed poet, musician, playwright, painter, and author, whose work draws on the mythology and folklore of her native Muskogee nation. Her poetry centers on the need for remembrance of ancestral lands and culture. And I greatly appreciated how Jen opened our session by acknowledging the Haudenosaunee people who had inhabited this region of our nation and the debt we owe to them because they inspired the founders of our own country with their political organization. But Joy is also expounding the core of feminism and social justice in her work. She understands the power of language and song to return us to a balance with the earth, its people, and ourselves. She is the author of more than 9 celebrated books of poetry, including several children's books, plays, and literary anthologies. She is a founding board member and chair of the Native Arts and Cultures Foundation, a chancellor of the Academy of American Poets, a member of the Academy of Arts and Letters, and in 2019, she was appointed the Poet Laureate of the United States. And she was the first Native American to hold that position. Joy's evocative writing has been described, and I loved this, as instructions for the soul. Our world and our understanding and connection to it is far richer for her sharing those instructions, for her using language to guide us to a deeper understanding of our own. It is an incredible honor to present her this medal and welcome Joy Harjo into the National Women's Hall of Fame.
Thank you. The only last time I saw Hillary was in an elevator in a hotel in New York. She was busy talking with someone and I didn't interrupt. What an honor. Hinje Stongo. Today, in this season of turning inward, we are here to celebrate the accomplishments made by women in this country who stood up despite the impossible and fulfilled what they were given to do. Each of these women being honored today demonstrates leadership, and each had to find their way despite gender, race, economic, cultural, or other challenges. Imagine a world where every child is given leadership training, because we must learn to be leaders of ourselves, which will assist in whatever path we choose or assume. I'm honored to be included with each of the honorees to join with everyone here today. Mado, or thank you to the National Women's Hall of Fame for making a place of celebration here, where the genealogy of democracy for this country begins. The mother root lives in these lands, cared for continuously by the Haudenosaunee. The birth of democracy that led the vision for forming this country began here, in this place of trees, waters, plants, stones, and animals who also contribute to how we move forward at this moment. Essential to democracy is nurturing with the equal participation of women, of women's councils led by clan mothers. This kind of leadership is necessary for balance. We need this collectively now. Today, we are honored to have the presence of many of these clan mothers and their families here. Can they stand up? They are ensuring that life continues in a time in which everyone is beginning to hear Mother Earth or Iganajaga speak decisively. I also want to give a special shout out to Dolores Huerta. She risked her life for humane treatment for farm workers. Viva Dolores Huerta. My mother, who is from Arkansas, and used to pick in the fields of Arkansas and Oklahoma, and ran away from home with her friend Elvira Guerra to the big city of Tulsa. And I wish to acknowledge my mother here then, especially for her courage, her hard work, her music, and for making it through a story that gave me a basis for understanding compassion. And her mother and hers, all the way back, they were dreamers and storytellers. And gratitude for my father, who carried a vision that I took on, a vision powered by an immense love for his Muskogee people. My Aunt Lois Harjo, whose footsteps I followed in taking care of the arts through practice and involvement in arts organizations. And my grandmother, Naomi Harjo, who played saxophone in Indian Territory before Oklahoma was a state. I have been mentored by so many of the poets, Adrienne Rich, Audre Lorde, Leslie Silko, and tribal nation leaders like Wilma Mankiller, who never stopped working to better the lives. Yes, let's hear it for Wilma. She was also an inductee and a wonderful friend who never stopped working to better the lives of her community, and by doing so, she improved all of us. I also want to give gratitude to circles of communities, my Indian school classmates who revisioned Native art for the world, my UNM Kiva Club, University of New Mexico Kiva Club classmates, we all work together to empower local Native communities. And the many mentors of healers, teachers, poets, writers at home and all over the world, my friends. And especially I want to acknowledge my children, great-grandchildren, and the way it was told to me by those who know things, and I always liked to listen to them, is that all of the children are our children. They belong to all of us. And my Muskogee people, the Muskogee Creek Nation, Ogeobova's ceremonial grounds, and I want to thank my husband, Owen Sapopa, of the Hijira people, like me, my muse, and he's also a knowledge keeper. As we stand here at this moment in celebration, we must remember we are in a time and place in history where democracy is threatened, where we are assailed by forces who wish to destroy basic freedoms and subjugate the minds and bodies of women, where young Native women throughout this country are missing and murdered at unprecedented rates, where women of Iran are being killed as they stand for their right to exist with dignity. It's important that we stop and celebrate in this time, to take a moment to gain strength, to see where we've been, and to imagine where we are going, keeping in mind that we will only get there together, all of us. What an honor to be given and carry this gift of life through these challenging times in this story field of tremendous beauty and complexity. Consider each breath as a prayer. If we consider each breath as a prayer, then we will come into the circle a little lighter, closer to insight that will assist us as we make a pathway from first breath to the end of our time here on this earth. Maro, thank you for this honor and for this community.
Welcome, Joy Harjo, to the National Women's Hall of Fame. (2015) inductee Carlotta Walls-Lanier was unable to join us today, but will be introducing our next inductee. At age 14, Carlotta was the youngest of the 9 courageous Black students known as the Little Rock Nine, who integrated Little Rock Central High School in 1957. The integration of the Arkansas High School was a catalyzing event in the American Civil Rights Movement, testing the landmark Brown versus Board of Education decision by the U.S. Supreme Court, declaring segregation in public schools unconstitutional. She, along with other members of the Little Rock Nine, is the recipient of the nation's highest civilian honor, the Congressional Gold Medal, which was awarded by President Bill Clinton in 1999. Carlotta is again joining us virtually to introduce Miss Emily Howland. Her induction medal will be accepted by Marilyn Post of the Howland Stone Store Museum.
I am Carlotta Walls-Lanier, and it is my distinct honor to introduce Emily Howland as a new inductee into the National Women's Hall of Fame. Known for her activism and interest in education, women's rights, and the temperance movement, Emily Howland dedicated her life to the active fight for equality. Among her accomplishments were, throughout the Civil War, Emily worked at multiple refugee settlements where she taught formerly enslaved people how to read and write and cared for the sick during a smallpox outbreak. Following the war, she purchased land so that families she had met had a place to build their lives. Again, she founded the Howland Chapel School, supporting the school along with nearly 50 other African American schools throughout the South. Also, Emily became widely recognized as a pioneer and leader in the women's suffrage movement. She was also one of the first women to become the director of a national bank in the United States. Emily Howland was tough and resilient from her childhood through her death at 101 years old. Her values shaped every aspect of her life, from her activism to her business to her philanthropy. She demonstrates so well the power of conviction and perseverance. I am proud to welcome Emily into our community of inductees at the National Women Hall of Fame.
Emily was a really interesting person, and if someone speaks about lifelong learners, she was the ultimate lifelong learner and educator. She taught before the Civil War in Rotilla Minor School, and she was very instrumental in the contraband camps during the Civil War in nursing, in getting items that were needed. After the war, she set up her own little village, Acadia, in Heathville, Virginia, and established a school, and she brought families that she had met in the contraband camps to live there, did her own 40 acres and a mule, essentially. But she continued that work. She supported that school until it was turned over to the state when she was in her 90s. And she supported an incredible number of schools in the South, and Native American schools and local schools here. So she was just, she never stopped. Emily's father, Slocum Howland, was a very strong abolitionist. The Quaker Society here in Scipio wrote down their feelings against slavery in 1837, and Slocum was very, very active in the Underground Railroad. Emily very much felt and could see the connection of how the suffrage movement grew out of abolition. But all the time she was working on rights for women, she was also still considering that all those people who had been enslaved were not being educated well and needed support, and that's one reason why she supported so many schools in the South. She also was one of the bank trustees for the Aurora Bank, which was quite unheard of in 1890, and her brother William was asked to do that, and he said, "You should ask Emily." So she was very capable of managing money that she inherited, making it grow, and making it do a phenomenal amount of work, really, over the years. Emily did live to be 101. She didn't quite make her 102nd birthday. All of her early friends from the suffrage movement, of course, had passed away. She was one of the few women that actually got to vote, that lived long enough. Emily was a quiet woman. In pictures of her, Emily's in the back row. That's where she put herself, but she contributed a great deal in terms of bringing a good education to many, many people and really advancing the cause of human beings.
Welcome, Emily Howland, to the National Women's Hall of Fame. I also want to make a special shout out to the Emily Howland Elementary School, who is hosting a watch party right now, and I'm sure is cheering like crazy. I welcome 2015 inductee Barbara Igluski to the podium. Barbara is a microbiologist whose research helped fund infection-fighting drugs that saved countless lives. Her work to understand how bacteria damages the lungs of cystic fibrosis patients has had an enormous impact globally. Barbara holds 7 patents and is the author of more than 180 papers and book chapters, and has received many awards and honors, including from the National Institutes of Health and the American Society for Microbiology. Barbara joins us today to celebrate Katherine Johnson. Katherine's daughters, Joylette and Catherine Moore, will accept this honor.
Thank you. It's a distinct pleasure and honor for me to be here today in order to introduce you to the next nominee for induction into the Hall of Fame, Katherine Johnson. Katherine, at a very young age, was demonstrating genius. By the age of 13, she was a student at the Black West Virginia State College, where in 1937, she graduated with honors in 2 different fields. She graduated with a degree in French and a degree in mathematics. Well, 1937, in those days, it was certainly appropriate and well thought of for a woman to study French. But to study mathematics, no. That was the field of men, certainly not a Black woman. She went on later on to graduate from the University of West Virginia as a graduate student. Then she went on to work in what is now known as NASA at Langley Research Center. Katherine was the key mathematician whose calculations of orbital mechanics were critical to the first U.S. manned space flight and remain the basis of all of the United States space flights today. In 2015, President Barack Obama awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, America's highest civilian honor, to Katherine Johnson. Katherine passed away in 2020 at age 101 years of age. Today, I am pleased and honored to induct Katherine Johnson into the National Women's Hall of Fame and present this medal to her 2 daughters, Kathleen Moore and Joy Harjo.
Good afternoon. We know you are all fans of my mom, Katherine. We're honored to be here in her place. That's my little sister. To the members of the National Women's Hall of Fame, on behalf of Katherine and me, and to the new honorees as well, I'd like to thank you for a very prestigious honor for her, and for her to be inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. And to the other 20, 21, and 22 inductees, I congratulate you, and I know that Mom would be very happy and honored to be in your company. In fact, even those who are not still living, she's lived long enough to have known the history of everybody. Because she said, I was 101 and a half. It's not easy for us to summarize in 5 minutes the life of our mother, who many of you have heard of, who lived to be 101 and a half. She would also always say, I don't know what all this fuss is about. I was only doing my job, and I did it well. What have you not heard about her? She was a very humble, maybe precocious, but normal person. I always felt she was a born teacher. Mom always wanted her classmates to know what she knew. As a youngster at 4, she helped her brothers because she understood their arithmetic problems better, sooner. She would ask her teacher to repeat the answer to a question she'd ask in class because she knew her classmates didn't understand what the teacher had said. The teacher said, why are you asking? She said, they don't know what you said. One of Mom's principles was always do your best. She said you can do no better than that. She was always interested in learning. One of her daily questions to us was, what did you learn today? And that was true even until she was 101. In fact, we were at a conference, we took her to be honored, and we were there, and she got the honor and all the trappings, and on the way home, she said, what did you learn? I didn't get to go. I said, Mom, I didn't learn anything. I was pushing you around all day. Mom once says there are three reasons you can learn as she did. You must want to learn. Your teacher wants you to learn. Your parents have high expectations for you to learn. I was invited to a Zoom event recently to almost 100 young 4th graders from California last spring from San Jose. I'd like to share a few comments and questions they asked in their letters to me, because I made maybe a mistake of saying because they weren't able to ask but about 3 or 4 questions in our Zoom process. And I said, well, if you write to me, I'll answer and send it back to you. So a week later, the teacher called and said, Ms. Heilig, where would you like for me to send these questions? I said, send them to my house because I knew she was sending them all. I said, well, by the way, how many did you get? She said, 80. So I said, okay. So she sent them, and when I finally realized that school was nearing an end, I said, I've got to get these answers back to these children before the end of the season, because they may go someplace else. But I just thought, just for you to hear what some 4th graders got from possibly either reading the book, listening to the movie, or reading the book. And so I'm just going to share a few of these with you. Totally quoted, so they repeat things. One thing I learned was to share your knowledge. Another thing I learned was to try new things. What I meant about this is I don't like to try new things. In my head, I was like, yeah, I should try new things. So now I'm trying to try a few new things every day. Another was, did you ever get upset with segregation? Now, these kids are from California, from the Hacienda Environmental Charter School. Next one. One thing I learned was that not giving up gives a better chance of success. I also learned that even though success takes work, it's always possible. Your mom proved that racism does not belong in the world and women can have any job that men have. Fourth graders. You said when you were a child that there were two sides to the city that you lived in. One was for black people and the other was for white people. That was interesting to me, and I'm really glad I learned that. I love how you say you were not inferior or superior. Be confident in yourself. It really made me happy. I remember you said, fast is not always good. Slow is not always bad. Take your time. These are just a few of some of the things these kids had on their minds when they were thinking about Mom. And just as the Uvalde situation happened, I said, I've got to get something positive to these children to know that people care. And the teacher wrote back to me when I told her how I was sending them, because I answered every one and sent her the copy and for her to give to the 3 teachers. And she said, not always people take time with the children. So many of you should think about that. Take time with these children and listen to what they have to say, because it may be important. Mom would have been elated that they had learned and understood so much. They received the important principles that she lived and taught from the movie and her books. Being a teacher at heart always made her happy, knowing that these young people got her message. Now, Kathy will finish.
I'm the youngest daughter, Katherine, of Katherine Johnson. And I just want to add an ending to a glorious occasion of the induction of my mother and Drolette's mother into the National Women's Hall of Fame. She was quite a role model for women and for young people, especially the girls. She wasn't interested, but think about it. She had 3 daughters, 1 mathematician, and 2 teachers to try to make up 1 Katherine Johnson. Seriously, she created quite a legacy. Schools bearing her name, NASA facilities, and other buildings bearing her name. And none of this would have been her wish. She was just doing her job. Little girls, we have pictures they would send to us. Little girls dressed in their pink dress, like the Mattel doll, and they made their presentations at school to receive honors. That's what she was about, that young girls saw something of value in learning and doing. Her life was worthy to remember, and it was highlighted in part by President Barack Obama's presentation to her at the Medal of Freedom Awards ceremony in 2015. And you have to pardon me, I might get a little emotional, but I'll hold it in. I quote, "With her razor-sharp mathematical mind, Katherine G. Johnson helped broaden the scope of space travel, charting new frontiers for humanity's exploration of space and creating new possibilities for all mankind. From sending the first American to space to the first moon landing, she played a critical role in many of NASA's most important milestones. Katherine G. Johnson refused to be limited by society's expectations of her gender and race, while expanding the boundaries of humanity's reach." End of quote. In hindsight, thinking of the impact Mom had on her daughters, her family, the community, it has had a ripple effect. We went back to work to tell the story. We have spoken to many groups, and we've gone from the state of Washington to the continent of Africa and Johannesburg, South Africa, telling her story. We were on the Today Show, presenting an overview of her last book, My Remarkable Journey. Sharing her story with others guarantees she will never be a hidden figure anymore, nor the other women nor all of the other women who have followed or before. And that just makes us mindful of what learning something new will do. It'll give us new insight and keep women in the forefront. So thank you again for honoring Mom, along with our special friends. We are proud to represent her. Thank you. Oh, and thank Frank and our ambassadors.
We would just like to say one more thing, that we thank the National Women's Hall of Fame, who gave us the two best ambassadors in all of Seneca Falls, the Kaposis. Thank you.
Welcome Katherine Johnson to the National Women's Hall of Fame. I welcome 2015 inductee, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. 2003 inductee, Linda Alvarado, to the podium. Linda is founder and owner of Alvarado Construction, one of the largest commercial construction firms in the country. She has broken glass ceilings and opened doors for women in the traditionally male-dominated field of construction. Linda is the first Hispanic co-owner of a Major League Baseball team. Go Rockies. And she's received the prestigious Horatio Alger Award, which is given to Americans who exemplify dedication and perseverance in their personal and professional lives. Linda joins us to honor and celebrate Indra Nooyi.
What an honor to be here. Who would have ever thought? I'm not the oldest, I'm not the youngest, but I'm definitely the proudest to be among all of you. The success stories, not just on the stage, but what's happening all over America. A comment you made about this new, I don't know where she went, National Women's Hall of Fame construction project is actually being led by the ambassador who was assigned to me, Kaylee, and she's here. This project is being led by a woman and built by women. Kaylee and when I met her, I didn't know she was in construction. They didn't say that. But we had so much in common in terms of experiences. But it's my honor to be here to acknowledge and to recognize Indra as being the first woman and the first immigrant to lead a Fortune, not 500, a Fortune 50 company in America. Indra was an immigrant from India, and I can understand a little bit some of the challenges as being a Hispanic woman and certainly as an Indian woman. You're defined by both double whammies. But challenges and not looking the part, people thinking maybe she's not who she says she is. It's changing the mindset, not just about how we look, but the mindset and the changes she's made in business and community. She started in textile and then later as a project manager for Johnson & Johnson. In 1976, are you that young? Oh, okay. She received a scholarship to Yale University, and she got her master's degree in public and private management, then went on to work with Boston Consulting Group and Motorola. In 1994, she took a job with PepsiCo. 1994, by 2000, she was the president of PepsiCo. And by 2006, she was the president chief executive officer. Many people tell other people, to think outside of the box. In her case, she was thinking outside of the bottle. She was the chief architect, which sounds like construction, but the designer, the thought leader in a program called Performance with Purpose. This was PepsiCo's pledge to make a healthier and more nutritious products, limit its environmental footprint, and empower the associates within PepsiCo, but also empower the communities where PepsiCo did business. Under her leadership, the net revenue grew by more than 8%. Her strategy and focus was thinking outside of the box. Bottle. Now they sell in a box too. Okay, out of the bottle. A mindset, acquisitions, Quaker Oats, Will Build Dam Foods, and Tropicana. Thinking of new ways and new opportunities to build upon the foundations of where the company started. Again, expanding the business, not just with products, but also looking at discussing with some of the current anchor bottlers who had been in the business for many, many years, but really were not active, involved, and really pushing and taking the opportunities to increase not just their sales, but the sales of the brand. And that is where I met you. She didn't acquire me. I happened to be appointed to the Pepsi Bottling Group board. That was one of the leaders of this initiative, not to divide, but to enhance. I was taken away because I read about, in her first sustainability report as the CEO of PepsiCo, she wrote, "When I was a child in India, my mother would ask my sister and me a couple of simple but compelling questions. What would you do to change the world?" She goes on to say, "Today I know my answer would be that I want to lead a company that is a force for good in the world. A company that delivers a strong financial performance while embracing purpose in everything it does." America's story is about immigrants, and of course, some of our Native American, we met them at the boat, but coming together, diversity was important. But for a woman, particularly coming as a new immigrant, what a success story of someone who has been acknowledged by Fortune and Forbes magazines as one of the most powerful women in the world. But how she measures her success is certainly performance. But she takes the time and has been unequivocally devoted and speaking about equity, inclusion, and enabling the entire global I think I needed Pepsi. rum and Pepsi. Okay. She's spoken about equity, inclusion, but also elevating the global economy to support families around the world. Her motivation, inspiration, dedication, innovation, perspiration, and hydration with Diet Pepsi and rum. Okay. She has been a leader, a mentor, but she's been a risk taker, but most importantly, an opportunity maker. Focusing not just on her title and her success stories, but assisting others not to be distracted by people who say, you'll never have a chance of succeeding. And in many cases, you have heard that as women or as young girls. All of us have hopes and dreams. The difference is, while some people take action, others continue to dream. She's not a dreamer. She's not an actor. She certainly is a great role model around the world.
Thank you, Linda, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege to be here in Seneca Falls, and it's a privilege to see you again, Secretary Clinton. She disappeared, oh my goodness. It's a privilege to see her. I stand here this afternoon in awe of the women in this room who represent the finest of what this country is, of the brilliant and brave women of long ago who pushed the boundaries to get us here, and of the tremendous honor of being included in the National Women's Hall of Fame. I am so grateful to be with you on this mission of recognizing the rightful role of women in our nation's history. I feel proud and I feel humbled. I was born in Madras, India in 1955, the middle of 3 children in a busy household led by my grandfather, but totally held together by my mother, who was his daughter-in-law. My beloved father, who worked in a bank, helped us and cheered us on. And every month, he did something very important. He handed his paycheck to my mother. Overall, our lives were very typical in the decades after Indian independence, with one critical exception. This was a household of progressive thinking when it came to educating women. My sister and I were challenged and supported to excel in our studies, as well as things like music and sports, in exactly the same way as my brother and the boys around us. And those 3 elders, my grandfather, my father, and mother, were completely unified on this point, despite all kinds of social pressures, especially on my mother, to marry off her daughters at age 18. I started the first women's cricket team in India. In my college, I played guitar in the only all-girls rock band in the south of India. I was pretty hot stuff. Yeah. I have to confess it was a pretty bad rock band. But it was a rock band. Hey, I will never forget the fact that my daddy kept telling me that I should never put out my hand and ask anyone for money except my parents. He said, "We are investing in your education to help you stand on your own 2 feet," he'd say. "The rest is up to you. Be your own person." Now, I clearly see how this set me on my way. It gave me the confidence to see myself as an equal in ability and potential to the young men around me in college, and then as one of the few women at a top school in Calcutta, School of Business in Calcutta. And it gave me the courage to move at age 23, alone, across the world to the US to study at the Yale University School of Management. There, I immersed myself into an innovative program that taught us to think about capitalism within the broader societal experience, to focus on the intersection of the private, nonprofit, and public sectors. After I graduated from Yale, I went on to work in consulting, several big companies, and then I did a wonderful thing. I married a wonderful guy, Raj, my rock, who's here with me today. Yep. Together we had two beautiful daughters. We have two beautiful daughters. And I was challenged and invigorated by a fascinating career in business. I worked my butt off, but I loved every minute of it. And make no mistake, along the way, I had a super supportive spouse. I had a wonderful extended family who also helped us. I had great schools for my kids. I didn't do it all alone. In 2006, I was named Chairman and CEO of PepsiCo, an iconic American enterprise. I am well aware that my journey is an unlikely journey, a journey that I've said many times was and is only possible here in America. Today's celebration has me reflecting on women's power and leadership in the economy. And as Linda mentioned, as the only head of a Fortune 50 company who so far has been honored in this Hall of Fame. I honestly believe that capitalism, companies, and entrepreneurship are at the heart of a vibrant and successful democracy. And I believe that we need to do more to connect the world of business and corporate power to our society's collective efforts to advance women if we want to achieve a more just and equal world. But here's the problem. Women are more than half of the economic actors on this planet. But we don't have enough sway, especially in the rooms where the biggest economic decisions are made, in order to truly influence how the whole system works. Here's a case in point. In venture capital, where 65% of the firms have no women partners, just 2% of venture capital investments went to female founders last year. It's been rounded up to 2, it's really 1.93 or something like that. And we wonder why women's ideas don't get traction. For 12 years as CEO, I met regularly with some of the world's most influential people. And I assure you of one thing, those titans of industry, almost all men, really do talk a lot about GDP growth, advancing the world through finance, technology. They even talked about flying to the Mars and Moon. Family builders, and support to families was never a topic of discussion, even fleetingly. To them, family was female, family was fringe. That was always a real disconnect for me. As a leader of a company with 275,000 employees, a mother, a daughter, a wife, and someone who was so often asked, how did you do it? I was acutely aware of the joys of motherhood, the service I was providing to the country by giving birth to the next generation of citizens, and the intellectual stimulation and economic freedom I got from contributing to the paid economy. But I was also constantly reminded of the colossal pressure of combining work and family. So what should we do? First, we need to constantly remind ourselves that the numbers do matter. We cannot let slide our effort to help women rise to lead our biggest organizations. I was the 11th women CEO in the Fortune 500 when I took over. And guess what? 14 years later, we have 44, a whopping 9%. Don't clap. It's not worth a clap. We have so much more to do to build a robust pipeline to the top. We also need more women on corporate boards. Boards are where decisions affecting millions of people and billions of dollars are approved. If we keep waiting for retirements of existing members to fill board seats, it'll be a long time before women get on boards. I think immediately companies should look to expand their boards so that women can be included onto boards. Second, I urge you to appreciate the power of great business leadership and the amplifying capability of private enterprise. Companies are not monoliths that cannot evolve and adjust. I think we proved that at PepsiCo, where, because of performance with purpose, we succeeded in making change in the company to focus on more nutritious products, environmental sustainability, and of course, our people. By the way, yes, we added fantastic childcare that filled up immediately, just as expected, and it helped us attract and retain top talent. It really works. Third, I believe we must focus on childcare and elder care with an energy and ingenuity like never before to help every worker handle the ebb and flow of life. You know, many people talk about care as a woman's issue. And of course it is. We still have the babies, we still do more at home, and we predominantly support aging parents. But make no mistake, care is an economic issue too. I believe that a more organized and robust care infrastructure would be profitable all around, for men, for women, for companies, for our country, because far fewer people would be forced to choose between paid work and looking after loved ones. With a robust care infrastructure, we will not be talking about the great resignation. Rather, we will be staring at the lowest unemployment rate in the history of our country and the great re-enrollment of anyone, especially women, who can and want to engage in the paid economy. The consequences for our GDP growth will be simply spectacular. So, let's keep working to pull care out of the shadows, out of politics, and into the realm of prosperity. It will be an investment to help many, as my dad said so long ago, stand on their own 2 feet, have economic freedom, have the power of the purse. I wish my dad was here to see me today. Thank you again for this wonderful honor.
Welcome Indra Nooyi into the National Women's Hall of Fame. "2013 inductee Nancy Pelosi is the first woman to be Speaker of the House and the first woman to lead a major American political party. Speaker Pelosi was instrumental in the passage of the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, the Affordable Care Act, historic investments in college aid, clean energy and innovation, and initiatives to help small businesses and veterans. Speaker Pelosi joins us virtually to honor and celebrate First Lady Michelle Obama.
Good afternoon. What a pleasure it is to join the National Women's Hall of Fame in applauding the achievements of 9 magnificent inductees. Each reflects the spirit of those who gathered in Seneca Falls 174 years ago to declare a self-evident truth that all men and women are created equal. As Speaker, it is my official honor to express Congress's profound appreciation and admiration for all those joining the ranks of this hallowed hall. It is my great personal privilege to introduce today's final honoree, a beloved American icon, a pillar of graceful strength, a role model to our country's daughters, Michelle Obama. Indeed, there is no woman or girl in America today whose life has not been brightened, imbued with hope by this extraordinary leader. From the hearts she touched on the campaign trail, to the barriers she tore down from inside the White House, to the lives she changed around the world, Michelle Obama's impact will be felt for generations to come. and she's just getting started. At a time when politics seems to be growing darker, divisions wider, cynicism more prevalent, Michelle has a way of transcending it all. She reminds Americans of who we really are. We are big-hearted, we're compassionate, we help our neighbors, whether near or far. We place our faith in democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my friend, I'm proud to say, and fellow inductee, Michelle Obama.
Hello, everyone. I just want to start by saying thank you to the National Women's Hall of Fame for this incredible honor, because I am so humbled to join the ranks of such extraordinary women, giants like Harriet Tubman, Aretha Franklin, Amelia Earhart, Gloria Steinem, each of whom broke barriers, pushed us to reach higher, and gave little girls like me something to dream about. But when I think about this honor, I don't think about speeches I gave or initiatives I led. I think about my mother, Marion Robinson. I think about my grandmothers, LaVon and Rebecca, because from a very young age, these women taught me that I mattered, that I was never just a little girl or just a child. I was always someone special in my own right, someone with a big heart and a big brain, someone who had value, someone limited only by her own imagination for herself. And as I matured into a woman, a mother, a wife, and First Lady of the United States, it was those lessons that got me through those tough days. So today I feel like my induction is their induction. It's their victory, their medal. And of course, I cannot forget about my father, Fraser Robinson, or my grandfathers, who I called Dandy and Southside, and the role that they played in raising me too. They helped me see the dreams I had for myself, and they always, always treated me like I was my big brother's equal, whether we were playing baseball in the yard, boxing in the kitchen, or heading off to the Ivy League. You see, I was lucky. The men in my family were self-assured enough to know that a woman's strength was never a threat to their own, that a woman's success meant success for them too. And that's something I've been thinking about as I reflect on this honor. I keep wondering how much further we'd be if every young girl felt that same sense of support from everyone in their lives. How many Katherine Johnsons we'd have making discoveries. How many more Judy Chicagos we'd have creating art. How many Indra Nooyis we'd have running businesses. Too often, people view women's progress as a cause that only women should care about, like it's our little pet project, like it's up to us alone to hold rallies and pass laws and break barriers all by ourselves. And for a lot of women, being inducted tonight, I'm sure that's what it felt like during those long hours in the lab or in the field or in the C-suite. But if we truly want to make meaningful progress, if we want to live in a world where a young girl has every chance that a boy does, it's going to take everybody, women and men, girls and boys, teachers and CEOs, mayors and governors, and yes, presidents too. And that's what we've got to remember as we think about this next generation of young girls growing up. Their success is up to all of us. Whether a young girl is growing up on the South Side or the Upper West Side, whether she's living on the Gulf Coast or in the deserts of the Southwest, we've got to do everything we can to lift her up, to clear the way so that she can dream big and fulfill her promise. And to all the girls and young women out there, I want you to know that there is no limit to your dreams. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Because believing in yourself, reaching for something more, that's how you'll become the person you're truly meant to be. That's how you'll lift up not just yourselves, but your families and your communities too. And remember that you don't have to do any of this alone. There's a hall full of us cheering you on. And I'm sure each of you somewhere has got a rowdy cheering section of your own in your hometowns. See, that's our job, to support you, to dream with you. And if we all do that, then I know that years from now, we're going to be filling this Hall of Fame with women who've left folks like me in the dust, women who are accomplishing things we can't even imagine right now. So, I want to thank everyone from the Hall for committing yourselves to achieving just that, by giving this next generation a vision of what's possible. You all are changing lives and moving all of us forward to a better future. So thank you again for everything you do. I am truly, truly touched by this honor.
Welcome Michelle Obama to the National Women's Hall of Fame. And now I challenge you. Who deserves to be honored by the National Women's Hall of Fame? What are historical and contemporary gaps that must be filled? What voices, what stories are missing? Think about a woman that you know who's made an enduring change. A woman who deserves to be recognized. A woman whose story serves as inspiration for the next generation. Our nominations form is available on our website, womenofthehall.org. We are your National Women's Hall of Fame. Every woman we honor begins with a nomination from the public. We are funded nearly exclusively by philanthropy. Your continued participation and support is critical. Please join us tomorrow for Mill About the Hall, 10 to 4 p.m. at the National Women's Hall of Fame, sponsored by the Bonifiglia Family Foundation. This event is free and open to the public. You'll be able to check out our introductory exhibits, enjoy some food, and see the next phase of renovation work that will begin this fall on our beautiful home. A special thank you again to the Greater Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra. And as you depart this afternoon, you are welcome to use the side doors of the theater or, of course, go back through the lobby. And now, once again, please join me in acknowledging and celebrating the 9 new inductees into the National Women's Hall of Fame.